Well, here with me now for today's political panel, Republican with Axiom Strategies, Aaron McGuire, and Democratic analyst Ari Aramesh. Guys, thanks for joining us this afternoon. The only politics in the country are not just going on right there. There's plenty happening in New York. Aaron, is this an indictment of Democratic primary voters, or is this just a young candidate who beats a very, very flawed former governor of New York?
I would say both of those things can be true. And I would say that this is the Democrats' socialist dream long game for Democrats. If he wasn't a naturalized citizen, I would say, watch out, Democrats. You've got a hot new guy who's entered the chat for 2028. But he is clearly going to be a driving force in the Democrat Party. They can't even get themselves as Democrats if it's Chuck Schumer or Kathy Hochul to denounce that Mamdani believes in the spreading of Intifada, and that he believes in from the river to the sea, the annihilation of the Israeli state, that he believes in defunding the police. These are a socialist fever dream for the Democrat Party, and he is now their front runner. I would tell you that this for the Democrat Party is the exact thing that was going to happen in the long run. Bring it back to Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, who stopped Bernie Sanders from winning the 2008 nomination, or from the 2012, 16 nomination?
16.
There we go,
Yeah.
I got there. The 2016 nomination by stopping him from getting the superdelegates. This is who the Democrat Party is on a national level and at the grassroots level. And this is Bernie Sanders' long game fever dream coming right to New York City, and it will decimate New York City.
All right, we've had so many conversations about what is a Democratic socialist, from AOC to Bernie. Here's how Mamdani explains what his political belief system is.
No, I have many critiques of capitalism. And I think ultimately the definition for me of why I call myself a democratic socialist is the words of Dr. King decades ago. He said, call it democracy or call it democratic socialism. There must be a better distribution of wealth for all of God's children in this country.
So a number of Democrats signed up for that. Someone who says that he would cut the police in 2020, though he's later said that he would not do that. He strengthened sanctuary city laws, boycotted Israel. Is this the Democratic primary electorate?
This is everything that's wrong with my party today. And this is exactly how we lose midterms, how we lose elections. This is not Mr. Mamdani is no longer in a college dormitory. These sorts of debates from the river to the sea, or talking about a globalized intifada. Have you ever had government-raised cucumbers sold at a government-run grocery store? They taste delicious, by the way. This is insanity. And to see that the party, knowing there is an anti-establishment wave in this country, knowing that you put Governor Cuomo, he is the epitome of establishment in New York City, his family, his own tenure as governor, and then you put up Mamdani, who comes in and actually wins the election fair and square with a lot of votes. The Democratic primary voter, just like the Republican primary voter, is very partisan. But there is a difference here. And I say this difference with much pain. The difference is, and when Aaron and I were talking, a lot of time the Republican primary voter is still very much flag waving. This stuff about socialism, and then when he says he's not a capitalist and he wants to cut the police, the American guys, you want to lose elections, talk about cutting funding to the police, talk about defunding the police, talk about socialize this and socialize that. I don't want to get into a philosophical debate about what socialism is or what communism is, but they sound terrible to the American voter. Mm-hmm. And Mr. Mamdani is the epitome of that. Somebody who hasn't run a shoe department at JCPenney is not going to be the mayor of New York City, and that's trouble. So as somebody who used to live in Upper West Side, I'm a Californian, but I lived in New York City for some time. I wouldn't want this guy running my city. And I'm surprised to see seasoned statesmen such as Jerry Nadler closing ranks behind this guy. Now, he's going to make a lot of changes. But again, if this is the future of the party, we're going to go to midterm. We can win the midterm elections. We can take a lot of seats, House and the Senate. And if we lose, it's because of candidates that are so extreme, talking about high taxation, talking about socialize this and socialize that, and government-run grocery stores. You got to be kidding me.
But you go across the river, Aaron, in New York, across the Hudson, and you've got Mikey Sherrill running, the Democratic nominee for the governor of New Jersey. Across the Potomac here, you've got Abigail Spanberger, who's running for governor of Virginia. These are Democrats who couldn't be more different than what Democrats have nominated in New York City. Is this just a fractured party? Are there still elements of centrism across the country in the Democratic Party?
Well, you'd have to ask the Democrats that. As a Republican myself, I find plenty of centrism in our party, and I find that we are very easy to work with. It's Democrats who seem to be becoming more and more extreme as things go along.
You and I got along pretty well.
We get along great. I totally agree. But it's the base of the Democrat Party has lurched incredibly far to the left. It doesn't matter what moderate, quote-unquote, Democrat you have. At this point, where have they been on defund the police? Because you can go back to 2020. Even a lot of the quote-unquote moderates were a big supporter of that. You can go to any Democrat and ask them about masking policies. Because in 2020, they were all, everybody wear a mask or I'm sending you to jail. But now that ICE officials are doing it so they don't get doxxed and targeted, oh, well, now we've got an issue with masking. Democrats are on every side of every issue. They just play centrist when voters are looking at their ads and not when they're actually legislating or leading. And so what you see with Mamdani is actually what Democrats want in this country. They want the government to tell you how many cucumbers you can buy at the grocery store. They want a social worker to show up when there is a domestic dispute at a family home and a man has his wife by the throat. That is what Democrats want in this country. They want less opportunity and they want more control by the government, and it will be a disaster across the board.
A really quick question to the both of you about this investigation that's going on in the House Oversight Committee. James Comer, the chairman, is investigating the use of the auto pen in the Biden administration, whether Biden officials were covering for the president. Do you think that this is, Ari, overreach, or is this a problem for the Democratic Party?
You guys finally won an election. Go celebrate. Right? This is so long and so far in the past. Biden, he forced us to deal with a sort of an unwelcome candidacy without a primary of Vice President Harris. And we lost that election. And we lost it fair and square. And we accepted the results, unlike the guy who's in the White House and lost the election in 2020 and still cries about it. But you guys won. Let's go run the country doesn't have to be run from the far left or the far right. I think there are questions about the integrity.
Yeah.
There are questions about, but for every question you can raise about the Biden administration integrity, you can raise 15 of those about the Trump administration. So I think the past is the past. Let's put that behind us. If anything, you got your reward, and that is we lost the election because the man was ill and they didn't tell us about it.
Time to leave Biden alone, or is this worth investigating?
This is absolutely worth investigating because if it happened under a Democrat, it can happen under anybody. If there was abuse and use of the auto pen without the president's knowledge, that is a threat to the democracy. That is a threat to the fabric of this nation. Absolutely. It's not in the past because we could be living those ramifications right now. This should be investigated, and the American people deserve the answers, and Democrats are continuing to try to keep the cover-up going of Joe Biden's decline. We deserve to know what was happening.
Guys, we were making such good progress there. Anyway, Ari Aramesh, Aaron McGuire, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.